Hello, I'm Jess Bibbo. I'm a research scientist at the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging in Cleveland, Ohio. My research focuses on pets in the lives of older adults, as well as in caregiving situations, so essentially the impact of the human-animal bond. Aspects of this bond which can become more salient as we age are emotional support and the opportunity to care for someone, and these can translate into motivators for health behaviors and daily activities, including for those who rely on a caregiver. Being a caregiver can be stressful. This is often referred to as burden, but it can also be a source of satisfaction. Mastery is the degree to which we feel that we can overcome obstacles we face in a role, in this case, caregiving. Unfortunately, pets are not often thought of as part of the caregiving experience. So these are my first two research questions. First, I wanted to know whether caregivers were doing pet care tasks and activities, and second, how these tasks, along with their perceived costs, were associated with the caregiving outcomes I just discussed. Third, were these associations moderated by the relationships between these three individuals, the caregiver, older adult, and the older adult's pet? All information was coming from the caregivers, so it's their perspective and the experience of the relationships that are being measured. I wanted the experiences of people who did not consider themselves to be an owner or co-owner of the pet, because then any pet-related tasks or activities would be part of caregiving and not regular day-to-day life. And I also wanted people who had some time to adjust into the caregiving role. These are the variables I used in the first two research questions. I wanted to have both the number of tasks they did for the pet, as well as the subjective cost of the older adult being a pet owner, as the perception of a stressor is often more influential in caregiving outcomes than the objective aspect. These were the moderating relationship variables. Higher scores indicated the caregiver perceived a stronger or more positive relationship, either between the older adult and their pet, themselves and the older adult they cared for, or themselves and the older adult's pet. Path analyses controlling for inadequate help were conducted separately for each outcome variable using maximum likelihood estimation for missing values instead of 15 with a level of statistical significance at 0.05. It was a fairly homogeneous sample. Over 90% of the older adults were living in the community, and most caregivers were adult, children, or a spouse. Just under 10% were friends. All participating caregivers either currently or had in the past lived with a pet. All caregivers reported doing pet care tasks and activities. Much less time was spent caring for cats than dogs, which was not surprising, but the total number of tasks positively and significantly correlated to the older adult's functional limitations. The only significant direct association was a -1 between perceived costs of pet ownership and mastery. I can't state directionality, but it does provide evidence for the impact of the perceived cost of a stressor, in this case the older adult being a pet owner. The perceived relationship between the older adult and their pet moderated the relationship between pet care and satisfaction. Those who felt the older adult had a stronger bond to their pet experienced greater satisfaction when they did a lot of pet care tasks. Mutuality moderated the associations between both the amount of pet care and the perceived cost of pet ownership and mastery, or the degree to which a person feels capable and in control within a role, but they did so in very different ways. The most dramatic moderating effect was the one mutuality had between pet care and burden. Doing more for a pet had almost no difference in burden when there was a positive relationship with the older adult, but when there wasn't, doing more was associated with more burden. The caregiver's own closeness to the pet moderated the association between the perceived costs of the older adult being a pet owner and caregiving satisfaction. There was little difference in satisfaction when costs of ownership were low, but larger when they were high. Certainly, the study had limitations, including being cross-sectional in a small sample, but two important takeaways were that all caregivers provided pet care, and the amount was higher when the older adult's functional limitations were higher. The impact an older adult's pet has on the caregiving experience is likely to be shaped by the relationship the caregiver has with that older adult. Indeed, pets may be a way for caregivers to indirectly provide care for the older adult. The results of this study provided the first evidence for the impact of a pet on the caregiving experience. Pets should be included in caregiving studies and services because they are a part of the instrumental and emotional caregiving experience. So thank you to CHAIRE for putting this on, and thanks to the organizations which funded and promoted this study, as well as the caregivers who took the time to participate. Please feel free to email me. Nalarama and I would be delighted to hear from you. Thank you.